Erenbal Rosnova drops the bomb without any warning. The engagement of his son to the great Dut Baldrova is already a fact. Ferda listens in silence in front of his father's desk, knowing that this isn't a wedding, but a death sentence for someone of the nobility. These words mean the end of the road. The Duke looks at him with that coldness of someone who's getting rid of an obstacle, leaving him with only two options: reject the deal and leave the family with nothing, or accept the engagement to be torn apart by the dragon. It's ironic because all this kid wanted was to fit in. Ferda was the third son, born to a concubine and with a body so frail it was pitiful to look at. The servants didn't even bother to hide their mockery as they watched him fail to train day after day. Nobody was on his side, but he kept trying, enduring everyone's contempt. He thought that if he tried hard enough, if he didn't give up, one day his father, Erenval, would truly acknowledge him. Poor Verda held on to hope, even when his own eyes made him a target for insults. Uren Rosnova appears to make fun of him. Uren Rosnova shows up to remind him of his place, mocking that a loser tries to train as a knight. They toss him to the ground effortlessly, leaving him surrounded by broken swords and humiliation. You don't even have the right to try with those filthy blue eyes. His own brother tells him. The longing to be accepted as family was still there, aching in his chest. But Erenval wouldn't even deign to look at him, always turning his back, until one day the gaze of the others simply turned away from him forever. I'm leaving the family. The Duke doesn't bat an eye, accepting his son's exile like it's just another formality. That night, Ferda crosses the doors of the Rosnova mansion with a small bag and a broken heart. He's no longer a Rosnova, and his father makes sure that idea is burned into his mind. His hands, scarred from a struggle no one cared about, shake with pure rage. I will never forgive them, he swears to himself as his eyes darken with hate. That was the exact moment when something dark awoke within him. He left the city, swearing that they'd all regret treating him like trash. At 18, Ferda woke up as a mage, but not just any mage. At the academy, the other apprentices would laugh at him for starting too late. They told him his brain was too old to grasp the basics of magic, but he couldn't care less about their theories on peace and inner strength. Ferda's mana didn't come from studying, but from a hatred that burned hotter than fire. A brutal explosion silences the laughter of those who underestimated him. The more he hated his family, the more power coursed through his veins, turning him into a monster. He became a sixth circle archmage driven by vengeance, and he only had one goal in mind. He returned home and forced the servants who had insulted him to kill each other in a blood frenzy. He made his brothers tear each other apart out of sheer mutual hatred, savoring every second of the carnage. It was finally his father's turn, the man who had hurt him the most. Look me in the eyes, father. Erenbal ended up begging for his death after watching his precious Rosnova family vanish. Ferda stands there, covered in blood and empty inside, seeing that his revenge is complete. But when he looks in the mirror with those red eyes, he realizes that all this power is still not enough. His hatred and rage did not subside, but spread across the entire continent like a plague. Ferda survived everything, reaching the 8th circle, the absolute pinnacle of human magic, while the strongest warriors declared him public enemy number 1. He became a great mage, but he knew the world wouldn't leave him alone. Revenge would always be on his tail. That's why he needed to reach the 9th circle, the realm of the demigods, to crush anyone who dared to challenge him. While investigating how to obtain that overwhelming power, he discovered the final ingredient he was missing. Fate is cruel because what he needed was exactly the heart of a dragon. The target was Sabrin Valdrova, the legendary red dragon. He needed her heart at any cost. The irony of life led him straight to the Forbidden Mountains, where the creature dwelled. Valdrova receives him with a chillingly calm demeanor, remarking on how odd it is that her supposed fiancé has come to kill her. the colossal red dragon eyes the tiny human before him, who seems insignificant by comparison. Ferda spits blood, wounded by the intensity of the battle that has lasted for hours. Despite his exhaustion, he screams at Baldrova that she must die by his hands once and for all. The dragon admits he knows the world calls her tyrant, but asks the young mage the real reason for his hate. Baldrova claims she's been hiding from humans long before he was even born, not understanding what grievance brought him here. Ferda's gaze fills with pure fury at the monster's supposed ignorance. She screams that she is the root of all his misery, because her stupid greed to find a suitor is what caused his family to cast him out. "Is it really our fault?" Baldrova asks, her voice heavy with sadness. Ferda explodes, shouting that yes, their mere existence ruined his life and turned him into the miserable man he is now. Suddenly, the dragon freezes, letting out a simple, "I see," that throws the magician off. Ferda is thrown off by the sudden shift in the fight's atmosphere. He doesn't care what she thinks. He seizes the moment to gather every last drop of mana he has. Baldrova stares at him and says she finally gets it as the air crackles with energy. The dragon unleashes an attack that seems like the end, but something's different this time. Zerda raises his magical shields, bracing for what he thinks will be the final blow of his life. A sharp sound echoes through the cave, followed by a burst of blood. Ferda's eyes widen as she senses something is off about the dragon's attack. Baldrova has impaled herself with her own claws in her chest at the sight of the protagonist. The wizard can't believe his eyes. Why would a sovereign dragon do something like this? She reminds him that her magic requires the heart of a dragon to be complete. Ferda panics as he sees her trying to destroy her own heart before handing it over. That heart is her only shot at reaching the ninth circle, and she's not about to let it go to waste. He casts a desperate spell to stop the creature's suicide, screaming in pure frustration. A crimson glow envelops Baldrova's body as she lets out a blood-curdling roar. Ferda curses the dragon, fearing that his chance at glory is slipping away before his eyes. Blood splatters the walls as the creature's chest is ripped wide open. A cry of denial escapes Ferda's mouth as he sees the brutality of the scene. The colossal body of Baldrova crashes to the stone floor, kicking up a cloud of dust. Ferda rushes towards her, desperately searching for any trace of the heart among the remains. Among the carnage, a golden light shines with an unnatural intensity. The heart is untouched. The young magician is left speechless upon hearing Baldrova's final wish. "Take it." "I don't understand you, Baldrova," Ferda murmurs, seeing that she could have easily killed him at any moment. With her last breath, the dragon hands over her heart, admitting that she was the cause of his suffering and that this is her final gift. Baldrova admits that for a long time they hated themselves for the violent blood that ran through their veins. The great red dragon recalls how he despised his own destructive nature. They couldn't control that irrational urge to lay waste to everything in their path. In his yellow eyes, the helplessness of not being able to stop his own rage was reflected. Their mere presence sowed absolute terror in the villages, leaving only fire in their wake. He even thought that his death was the only way to put an end to the chaos his existence caused. Despite everything, she clung to life with the foolish dream of finding happiness someday. That selfish wish only brought more misery to those around her. As a final act, Baldrova begs Ferda that at least he can be happy because of this sacrifice. The dragon fades into the darkness, leaving its essence in the hands of the man who married her. Ferda feels something twist inside him as he holds the dragon's power. He wonders why getting what he wanted so badly leaves such a bitter taste in his mouth. He tries to shake off those doubts. He's come too far to regret it now. The ninth circle is just one step away, right in front of her eyes, throbbing with energy. Raises the essence of the ancient dragon, a golden heart that shines with the power of the sun. He knows that if he absorbs this, he will finally stop being just a mere human. Ferda lets out a blood-curdling scream as the power begins to rebuild his very being. The energy envelops him completely, shattering the bounds of mortality to transform him into a demigod. Suddenly, he finds himself floating in a dark void, his body glowing with an intense light. He's confused. He's sure he took the dragon's heart, but something's not going according to plan. He feels himself falling into an infinite abyss of memories that aren't his. It's Valdrova's voice and presence that surrounds him in this absolute darkness. A tidal wave of overwhelming emotions hits him out of nowhere. He realizes he's experiencing the deepest feelings of the dragon he just killed. In an instant, he sees it all: the loneliness, the pain, and the true story of Valdrova. Ferda is in shock, unable to process the magnitude of what he just discovered. The ancient despair of the dragon makes his own years of hatred seem insignificant and ridiculous. She breaks down in tears, realizing she destroyed a beautiful soul that only sought love in the world. What did I really want so badly? She wonders as her ambition crumbles. He doesn't care about revenge, power, or being a great magician. He sees the image of his younger self, a kid who hadn't been corrupted by tragedy yet. All he wanted was something as simple as a family that loved him and to live in peace. He discovers in horror that Valdrova shared exactly the same simple dream as he did. The dragon yearned for the same peace that he had torn away with his blood-stained hands. Returns to the harsh reality of the battlefield where the lifeless body of Valdrova lies at his feet. It's no longer worth having reached the pinnacle of power if the cost was destroying his own humanity. With the power of the ninth circle, Ferda decides to go all in with a single, final move. Activates the ultimate spell of a mage of his level, wishing with the intention of fixing the past. A familiar voice calls out his name, snapping him out of the forbidden magic trance. Ferda opens his eyes, confused, finding himself in a luxurious office that should have vanished years ago. Right in front of him is his father, Ehrenball Rosnova, looking at him with the same contempt as always. He realizes he's back to the exact day his life started to fall apart for the first time. Ehrenball Rosnova drops the news on Ferda that will change his life. His engagement to the Grand Duchess Valdrova is a done deal. His father looks at him coldly, assuming that Ferda understands the political and personal implications of this deal perfectly. The warning is clear. If he rejects this engagement, the consequences for the Rosnova family will be devastating. Ferda, overwhelmed by the reality of having returned to the past, feels the weight of each step he takes in that room. To his father's surprise, Ferda accepts his fate without batting an eye, showing a determination he never had before. He formally accepts the commitment, vowing to himself that this time he won't run from his fate with the dragon. Huron Rosnova, the second son, can't believe the rumors about his brother's engagement to the feared Valdrova. Huron mocks Ferda, thinking he's too pathetic to willingly walk into his own grave. The butler confirms that Ferda is still in his room, getting ready to leave without causing any trouble. With a wicked grin, Huron decides to go see his brother to gloat over his misfortune before he leaves. Meanwhile, Ferda is alone in his room, keeping a calm that would be unsettling to anyone who knew him. Huron bursts into the room, shouting insults, surprised that Ferda hasn't left yet. Huron's expression turns to one of total bewilderment as he sees his brother's calm and transformed attitude. Huron expected to find a Ferda crying and begging, not someone preparing for his departure with such elegance. Ferda responds with a cutting coldness, scolding his brother for barging in without knocking. He explains that he has dismissed the servants to get used to fending for himself, knowing that he won't have any help in his new life. Huron wonders if this is really the same Ferda he knew, unable to grasp his sudden personality change. Ferda states with complete calm that he knows full well that his family is kicking him out to die. Huron insists that the engagement is nothing more than a death sentence disguised as a noble duty. Ferda assures him that he knows everything. even better than Huron could ever imagine. Huron reminds him of the story of the third prince of the empire, the first betrothed of Baldrova, who was the perfect man. That prince gave up his right to the throne just to be by the side of the violent dragon, believing that his love would be enough. However, less than a day after arriving in Baldrova's lands, that man met a tragic end at the hands of the beast. Huram Rosnova, the second prince of the family, lets out a mocking laugh as he scoffs at the fate of his brother. To him, this engagement is nothing more than a death sentence, disguised as a noble duty. He remembers with contempt how in the past Ferda was humiliated to the point of exhaustion, treating him like he was worthless trash. Hiran points directly at Ferda Rosnova Correo, arrogantly questioning if he really thinks he can survive a commitment that not even the third prince could handle. The older brother's air of superiority is obvious. He shrugs dismissively, insisting that no one can stop a fool who decides to walk straight into a dragon's mouth. For Huron, Ferda is already a dead man. He issues a final threat. If Ferda tries to disobey the family and run, he'll make sure to cut his head off before the dragon gets the chance. The tension between them is absolute. Ferda stares right back at him, showing no sign of fear. With icy calm, she suggests to her brother that he better worry about keeping his own pants zipped. Oren's face contorts with rage as Ferda drops the bombshell. Everyone knows he's been eyeing his older brother's wife inappropriately. The dirty little secret is out. Oren goes berserk and tries to lunge at him, but Ferda just raises his hand, telling him to keep his hands to himself. He's got the situation completely under control. With a cynical smile, Ferda remarks that it would be a shame if his face got messed up right now, that he has a long journey ahead to the dragon's lair. He bids farewell with an elegance that only serves to infuriate his brother even more, loads his luggage, and walks towards the carriage waiting for him outside the Rosnova mansion. It's the start of his exile, but he sees it as a liberation from that toxic house. Upon arrival, the vulture's butler covers his face with a handkerchief, feigning inconsolable grief over the departure of his young master. It's an Oscar-worthy performance. The old servant assures him that it has been an honor to serve him all this time, while Ferda finishes packing his things into the carriage without looking at him. Ferda knows full well that it's all a lie. If he really felt appreciation, he wouldn't have tried to kill him slowly over the years. A bitter memory crosses his mind. When he was a kid and sick in bed, this same butler would pour poison into his food on orders from above. Everyone was against him. Secondly, the bloodlust from his past life resurges. He imagines himself squeezing the old man's neck until he stops breathing from all the hypocrisy. But he holds back. Instead, Ferda puts a hand on the butler's shoulder and sarcastically thanks him for working so hard all these years taking care of someone like him, asks him to take good care of the Rosnova family while he's gone, leaving the man confused and visibly nervous by the young man's unusual tone. The carriage finally pulls away from the imposing mansion, leaving behind years of abuse and silent conspiracies. The journey into the unknown has begun. Sitting alone inside, Ferda notices to his surprise that his mind is at peace. Maybe it's because in his past life he already got his revenge, and now that fire has burned out. He watches the landscape through the window, enjoying the peace of the road as he leaves the capital behind. She no longer feels the desire to see the world burn. He tells himself that the hate and the rage are gone. The carriage advances through dense forests, bringing him closer and closer to the forbidden territory. However, the shadow of his past as an archmage is still there, reminding him of the bloodthirsty man he used to be, covered in the blood of his enemies. He remembers that for him, magic was like a drug. At first, it was a sensation of absolute ecstasy, something that made him feel invincible as he reduced everything to ashes. But as his power grew, so did his addiction, becoming completely uncontrollable and ultimately consuming him. That maniacal smile was the reflection of his own downfall. He even remembers the moment he got the dragon's heart, an immense power that pulsed with destructive energy, capable of changing the world. He had it all in the palm of his hand. Back to the present, his eyes reflect a deep melancholy. He doesn't want to be that monster the world feared again. He leans back in the carriage seat, eyes closed, determined to reject that path of destruction. The silence of the journey is his only refuge for now. He lets out a long sigh. For the first time in a long time, this strange peace feels almost comforting. Suddenly, the carriage comes to an abrupt halt. The coachman, voice shaking, announces that they've finally reached their destination. The fear in his voice is palpable. In front of them is an old, weathered wooden sign that warns, "Beyond this point lies the territory of the Great Duke. Entry is strictly forbidden. This is the border of the Dragon Kingdom." Ferda gets down and stands alone in the middle of the road, watching as the driver speeds away. The guy didn't waste a second in hauling ass as soon as he heard the word dragon. The carriage disappears in a cloud of dust, while the driver yells for him to stay safe, even though his actions say otherwise by leaving him stranded. Sitting on his suitcase, Ferda ponders his situation. Being free from surveillance is great, but if some wild beast decides to attack, he'll be in trouble. He starts to consider that, after all, maybe he'll need to use a bit of magic to survive in this place. Maybe a simple fourth circle spell will be enough to keep the predators at bay. Suddenly, he notices a figure moving among the bushes. Someone's been watching him from the shadows of the forest. Ferda is immediately on high alert. From the underbrush emerges Ruri, a young maid with silver hair and a serene gaze. She formally introduces herself as Lady Docroda's personal assistant, leaving Ferda stunned by her sudden appearance. Ruri asks if he is young Lord Ferda Rosnova. After receiving an affirmative answer, the girl looks at him curiously. Assessing the human who has dared to come this far, she informs him that she will personally escort him to her lady's castle. With an elegant gesture, she points the way towards the imposing mountains looming in the distance. As they walk, Ferda recalls the history of the Arkan Empire, a power that believed there was nothing it couldn't conquer. Its citizens lived drunk on power, ignoring the reality of the borders. That reality is the east of the continent, the land of demons. A region teeming with colossal monsters and calamities humanity could never dream of conquering. A place where death lurks around every corner. However, there was someone who managed to stop those hordes and rule the front lines. The great Duke Valdrova, the majestic red dragon whose mere presence makes the earth tremble with his fiery breath. Following Ruri, Ferda thinks Valdrova's infamy is unjust. She built the only defense against the demons, and yet humans call her a demon dragon out of sheer fear and ingratitude. Ferda hears the rumors going around about Valdrova, saying she's breeding a secret army of monsters in the shadows, but of course, no one's got the guts to tell her to her face. Ruri walks with total ease, assuring him that, as long as he's with her, he has nothing to worry about. With her by my side, no beast of the forest will dare to attack. Ferda can only thank her, though he keeps his guard up inside. "How much longer?" he asks, already quite tired. "About 2 more hours, she responds, as if it's no big deal. Rory admits that if she were alone, she'd get there in 10 seconds flat. Basically, she's calling her a nuisance to her face. Ferda watches her movements and becomes convinced that she is no ordinary servant. Seeing her white and scaly tail, he confirms his suspicions. She is a high-ranking dragon spawn, a being with strength and magic in a totally different league. He jabs his staff into the ground to gain momentum and keep up. Ferda is trembling as he heaves his heavy suitcase. Ruri mocks him, asking if he wants her to fly him, which would mean she'd have to carry him like a baby. He tries to act tough, saying he can handle the flight, but she cuts him off. "No, I just don't want to." They stand there in the middle of the forest, with Ferda looking like he's on the verge of physical collapse. Ferda suggests a quick break, but Ruri won't budge. Her teacher is waiting, and time is running out. He looks like a zombie as he makes a supreme effort to keep walking. The sun sets over the mountains, and Ferda starts to feel that this whole getting married thing is going to be a lot harder than he thought. Finally, they reach the castle gates, and Ruri knocks firmly on the enormous stone wall. "Ma'am, your fiancé has arrived." Ferda starts to sweat bullets. The aura emanating from within is so heavy that she can barely breathe. It's the raw power of a dragon. Ruri stops him dead in his tracks. She's the one who'll get the message from Baldrova first. Ferda asks if they can't talk face to face. She flashes her dragon eye, intimidating him to the max. "Do you really think someone like you is worthy of standing before her?" She lets him go. Ferda picks up the message quickly. Ruri closes her eyes to communicate telepathically, and a moment later has the response from the great Duke Valdrova. An imposing image of the red dragon appears before them. The message acknowledges their worth for having come this far, knowing their brutal nature. But there's a twist. Valdrova doesn't want a forced commitment and orders him to go back the way he came. Ferda is in shock. He traveled all this way just to be rejected at the doorstep? He thinks that in his past life he would have taken the gold and run off happy to avoid the danger, but now it's different. Being there is his own lesson, and he won't back down so easily. "I don't want to go back. I want to move forward with our agreement." Ruri stares at him with deep hatred, but he just asks if she's going to relay his words. In the end, she reluctantly agrees. Out of nowhere, Ruri pulls out a giant bag stuffed to the brim with gold coins. Valdrova praises her determination, but insists if she's scared of returning empty-handed, here she has a fortune to start over somewhere else. The image of the dragon sitting on piles of gold is clear. It's trying to buy its own freedom. Ferda looks at the mountains of coins, but doesn't flinch. "I have no interest in power or wealth," he says. He raises his hand decisively as he clarifies his true intentions to the magical projection. He kneels before the image of Baldrova and swears that his only interest is a marital commitment to her. Ruri lets out a sigh of frustration, fed up with what she considers a blatant and ambitious lie. She clenches her fist and begins to unleash a terrifying red energy that makes the air vibrate. Ruri points at Ferda with her finger. "I'm not wasting any more time. Get out of here right now," she orders, pointing to the exit. Ferda gets confused, thinking it's a short message from the dragon, but Ruri clarifies that this comes directly from her as her servant. Ruri begins to transform, drawing out her claws and unleashing her true wild nature. In her full high-spawn form, her aura is so intense that the ground starts to crack beneath her feet. Ferda is blown away by the pressure. It's the dragon fear, a technique that can paralyze any mortal with sheer terror. He hits the ground as Ruri looks down on him with disgust, convinced he's just another low-life human driven by ambition. Ruri lays it on him straight. The third prince died precisely for trying to take advantage of Lady Darroad. According to Ruri, his head was only full of schemes to exploit the great dragon, and that's why he ended up in a bad way. Seeing her eyes gleaming with that murderous intensity, it's clear that she feels not an ounce of pity for the deceased. She approaches with a steady stride, calling him arrogant for daring to request a direct audience. Suddenly, Ferda feels an overwhelming pressure that throws him to the ground. Ruri makes it clear that, in her eyes, he's no different from the greedy prince before him. "Do you want to die in the same miserable way?" she asks as Ferda struggles to breathe under his dragon spawn aura. But to the servant's surprise, Ferda doesn't show any fear. Instead, he flashes a small, defiant smile right in the middle of the crisis. "I, Ferda Rosnova, swear here without a shred of deceit," she begins to say with a determination that Ruri did not expect. She assures that she is not there out of obligation to anyone or seeking selfish gains, earning the momentary respect of her surroundings. In her mind, Ferda recalls a distant past where she gave her heart to him and decides that this time things will be different. With a mystical glow surrounding him, he swears that in this new life he will stand firm by the side of the great dragon, looking her directly in the eyes. He demands that she inform her lady that they should talk face to face instead of using intermediaries. Ruri clenches her fists, claws extending. She can't believe the audacity of this arrogant bastard. How dare he spout such nonsense? She seethes internally as she prepares to attack again with all her fury. Just as it seems she's about to tear him apart, something stops her dead in her tracks, as if she received a direct mental command. Regaining her composure instantly, she apologizes and orders him to wait while she consults with her master. Once inside the castle, Ruri kneels before her mistress to repeat word for word what the human said. She informs her with precision that the young man has officially introduced himself as Valdrova's fiancé. He addresses her as the Grand Duchess Valdrova, one of the 12 rulers, whose mere silhouette commands absolute respect. Valdrova's voice echoes through the hall, asking with curiosity if that man really said all that. The Grand Duchess presents herself as an imposing woman with long red hair and black horns. Intrigued by the human's audacity. "What did you think?" she asks. Ruri responds that he seems like an incredibly weak human who almost died on the way to the castle. She even goes as far as to say that he is hideously ugly and suggests kicking him out right away to not waste any more time. However, she has to backtrack immediately and admit that he actually has a pretty handsome face, the kind that breaks hearts. Ruri makes a sour face when she has to admit something good about a mere mortal. In the end, she has to admit that Ferda is, at the very least, a pretty unusual guy. She explains to her mistress that she tried to terrify him with her dragon spawn aura, which should have been a piece of cake. But to her astonishment, the man didn't show an ounce of fear under such pressure. Ruri concludes that, weird as it is, this human should be able to look the Grand Duchess straight in the eye. The maid continues to process the encounter, still bothered by the supernatural calm Ferda displayed. Valdrova simply responds, magnificently, showing that his interest has fully awakened. The red dragon, seated majestically, ponders the oddity of encountering a human capable of holding her gaze. Finally, she makes a decision. She will meet with him normally, without any tricks or prior intimidation. Ruri is stunned. "Normally, master?" she asks, unable to believe that she's skipping protocol for a human. Defeated by her mistress's order, Ruri leaves the room with an expression of total resignation. Outside, she informs a surprised Ferda that her mistress has agreed to go ahead with the wedding. Without wasting any time, Ruri leads him through the castle's grand hallways to his new room. As he enters, Ferda is blown away by how well kept and luxurious everything is. It's way better than he imagined. Noticing there isn't a speck of dust, he asks who takes care of everything, and Ruri clarifies that she does it all alone. With a pretty sharp tone, she reminds him that she is the only servant, and that he, for now, is just a guest. Ferda asks her if he shouldn't call him her fiancé, but she's firm. Until there's a ceremony, he's just guest number one. While Ruri stares at him with a hatred that pierces through the walls, Ferda can't help but think that he is like an extremely loyal guard dog. Ferda wants to get straight to the point and asks when the engagement ceremony will be. Ruri tells him it will be in a month. The ceremony will take place in private inside the dragon's lair, with just the three of them present. "I see," Ferda responds as he adjusts his glove. Processing the information, Ferda mutters to himself that a month should be enough time for what he has planned. Ruri looks at him skeptically, staying quiet while he thinks. Ruri makes it clear to him that this month isn't a gift. It's his deadline to prove he's really worth something. With an imperious gesture, she warns him that the companion of her great master must have a status to match. "Prove you're worthy to be her fiancé," Ruri demands, pointing at him firmly. Ferda sighs, realizing that marrying a dragon is going to be an extremely tough task. He asks her if this test is his teacher's wish, but Ruri admits it's her own decision. Ruri thinks her teacher is too soft, and she doesn't think she'll let just any human get that close without earning it. She demands that he prove his weak human body has at least some hidden potential. Ferda imagines the scale of the task, seeing the dragon's shadow over an empty throne. Pictures other powerful men who would never be accepted as companions of the Grand Duchess. Ferda thinks to himself that his fiancée has a very loyal and capable maid by her side. He acknowledges that even if she hates him, Ruri always puts her mistress's interests above everything else. Ferda wonders why someone so loyal wasn't by his side in the tragic end he remembers from his past life. He remembers the painful image of the dragon handing him its heart in the midst of the darkness. Ferda accepts the challenge and asks how high he must climb to satisfy her, to become emperor. Ruli tells him not to be ridiculous, that it will be enough if the other rulers don't look down on him. All right, I accept. Ruri doesn't get how he can be so chill about a task that seems impossible for a mortal. She wonders if he's underestimating the dragons or if he's just an idiot, but Ferda, very calmly, responds that it's neither of the two. Ferda assures Ruri that there's nothing to worry about, promising her that in just 1 month he'll show her skills that will leave her satisfied. Ruri looks at him skeptically, wondering to herself where this human gets so much confidence. Night falls over the imposing mansion, bathed in the light of a full moon. Ferda walks down the hallways, aware that he doesn't have a shred of power right now. He remembers his past life when he was a 9th Circle mage, an experience that made him unique on this continent. He's confident that, if he keeps his senses from back then, recovering his level is totally possible. He knows that the 1st circle is the most critical for any mage, as it determines the nature of their mana circuit. There's the blue circle, which forms through meditation and calm. It's a slow path, but very stable. On the other hand, the red circle is born from volatile and explosive emotions. In his past life, Ferda became a powerful sorcerer fueled solely by hatred, which drove him to lose his mind. He knows that going back down that path would make him strong much faster, but he doesn't want to repeat his mistakes. He clenches his jaw, determined not to be consumed by the darkness again. This time, he'll take a different path to make sure his resolve stays unbroken. A week goes by, and he makes sure his will remains unbreakable. A week goes by, and the mansion remains quiet under the midday sun. Ferda sits on the floor to meditate, trying to connect with his hand. He's giving it his all, sweating as he tries to stabilize the blue energy in his hands. He lets out a sigh of frustration. He failed again. He thought that with his memories it would be easier, but the nature of the blue circle is totally different from the red. He's only got 3 weeks left. Ruri enters the room carrying a tray of food and asks if he's still getting ready. She serves him a hot stew, remarking in a mocking tone that nothing seems to have changed about him. Ferda starts to eat and responds that everything will happen in due time. Ruri just looks at him with annoyance. As he chews, Ferda admits to himself that he's not making any real progress and that he needs a different approach. Suddenly, a violent tremor shakes the entire room, causing Ferda to freeze. Ferda asks about the source of the vibration. Ruri explains that his teacher is conducting a monster subjugation. Ferda looks thoughtful at the mention of the hunt. Ruri adds that Baldrova is personally cleaning up the demon-infested land to the east. The name Baldrova echoes in his head. Ferda looks up, intrigued. Without hesitation, Ferda says he wants to see that battle with his own eyes. Rui is surprised by the request. Rui gets serious and warns him that it would be best if he didn't go. She explains that a mere human could never handle seeing a dragon in battle and keep their sanity. Rui advises him to stay at the mansion if he doesn't want to end up pissing himself with fear right before the engagement ceremony. Ferda slams the table firmly and says a resounding no. He stands up and declares that, as Baldrova's future partner, it is his duty to witness that fight. Ruri gives in and wraps him in a gust of wind as they prepare to leave. Unfurling her dragon wings, Ruri takes off and they streak across the sky at breakneck speed. "We're here," she announces. They slam down onto a grassy cliff. Ferda drops to his knees, completely dizzy. He feels like Ruri's speed was almost like teleportation magic. With his stomach churning, Ferda tries to get his bearings. Rutri tells him coldly to get up and look ahead. Rutri warns him that she isn't the person he should be looking at right now. Ferda focuses his gaze. Her eyes widen as she takes in what's happening on the horizon. Ahead of them, a dark and violent energy swirls across the battlefield. Ferda is left breathless, breaking into a cold sweat at the sight of the chaos before them. He's face to face with the nightmare of the demon's land. So that's where Baldrova fights, he wonders, impressed. Baldrova, in her imposing dragon form, pounces on the monsters, tearing them apart with brutal force that shakes the ground. A burst of fire engulfs the battlefield as she lays waste to everything in her path, showing no mercy. The gigantic serpentine creatures try to encircle her, but their mere presence seems to paralyze them. With a swift movement of her claws, Baldrova shreds her enemies, causing a metallic, screeching sound. Her eyes gleam with fierce intensity as she braces for the next strike. There's no escape for the monsters. Baldrova throws her head back, gathering a scorching energy in her throat that illuminates the entire cliff. She unleashes a colossal fire breath that instantly incinerates dozens of creatures, turning them to ashes. Ruri watches the scene calmly, used to the devastation her mentor can cause. The dragon roars with such power that the air itself seems to vibrate, a sound that strikes terror into any living being. Stretching out its wings, Baldrova rises above the sea of fire, reasserting its dominance over the territory. Ferda feels the roar physically hitting him, leaving him stunned and breathless. Unable to stand under such pressure, he collapses to the ground, completely overwhelmed by the dragon's power. Ferda realizes he had forgotten what it meant to face such absolute and overwhelming power. He shakes violently, clutching the ground as he tries to catch his breath from Baldrova's imposing roar. Ruri looks down on him with contempt, remarking on how absurd it is for a mere mortal to presume to bond with a dragon. She points out the true form of who will be her partner, a being of pure destruction surrounded by flames. Insists that the idea of a human being by the side of a dragon is ridiculous, almost an offense to nature. Ruri declares that is the true essence of the being that Ferda intends to marry. Ferda keeps trembling on the floor, her body reacting instinctively to the fear emanating from the dragon. Ruri admits that's why she warned him not to come. The psychological consequences for a human are devastating. She explains that in the blood of a red dragon lies what humans call the essence of the evil dragon. It's a violent urge to kill that can't exist without destruction, something innate to their kind. Ruri asks him if he finally understands what it means to be the companion of such a creature. He knows that willpower alone won't be enough, a sentence that a human and a dragon can never be one, and that soon even Baldrova will realize how useless it is to dream of that. Ferda lifts his head slightly, a faint smile on his lips, murmurs that it's just magnificent. Ruri is stunned, wondering if she's really smiling in this situation. Ruri steps back, horrified, realizing that Ferdan feels not fear, but admiration. She screams at him, calling him a sick freak, unable to comprehend how anyone could be fascinated by such carnage. Back at the mansion, the knight wraps the castle walls in absolute silence. He's lying down, processing everything he saw. He knew it would be intense, but reality blew his mind. He feels his body is a total mess after being hit by the dragon's fear and Baldrova's roar. Ruri brought him back, leaving him on the bed to try and recover from the zoo. Ferda closes his eyes, thinking it's a miracle his mind is still intact after witnessing such power. If he keeps this up, he'll lose an entire day. He wonders to himself why he felt so compelled to see that battle in the first place. It was terrifying, he admits, but as he recalls the image of Baldrova amidst the flames, something inside him stirs differently than fear. That deafening roar still echoes in her ears, reminding her of the dragon's ferocity. Despite the incredible terror she felt, Ferda realizes she wants to keep watching, that she can't look away. Imagine Valdrova tearing through monsters at the edge of the world, alone in her eternal battle. He understands that all that violence is, at its core, to protect what she loves. It's a constant sacrifice. He sees her as a noble red knight who has chosen a life of suffering and loneliness at the epicenter of chaos. Ferda gives in to that feeling of awe. What a beauty, he thinks, as a new determination is born in him. He pauses to consider that she and he will soon be united, and the thought gives him a jolt of unexpected emotion. As he meditates in the solitude of his room, Ferda picks up an unusual vibration coming from the crimson gem on his tie. He feels that this kind of mana is dangerous and knows he must reject it if he doesn't want to repeat the tragedies of his past. Suddenly, a vision of Valdrova fighting fiercely slams into his mind, causing a painful tightness in his chest. He realizes that remembering that battle clears his mana circuit. It's an emotion that doesn't come from hatred or revenge. Ferda squints, focusing all his will to unravel the nature of this particular feeling. He wonders what to call this unique sensation as he visualizes himself in an ocean of red energy that threatens to dissipate. He decides to focus completely, trying to compress the mana and spin it with increasing intensity between his hands. A crimson vortex envelops him, challenging his mental fortitude as he struggles to stabilize the flow. With a final push, he focuses on drawing a single circle of light that represents his new mastery over the mana. A perfect red magical seal appears on his hand. Ferda swears to himself that this time he won't repeat his past mistakes. The young noble grips his chest with determination, convinced that his future will take a completely different course. The next morning, Ruri is astonished to find that Ferda has managed to cleanse his mana circuit in just one night. Ferda admits calmly that he could do it because he's no ordinary guy, as Ruri watches him with a mix of disbelief and suspicion. After breakfast, Ferda gracefully cleans himself and asks if there's a suitable place to test out his magic. Ruri acknowledges that, against all odds, he's met the qualifications to start his training. She assures him that the training field is ready, even though she still doesn't get how he bounced back so quickly from his previous condition. Under a clear sky, the straw targets wait in silence in the middle of a clearing surrounded by hills. Ruri puts the finishing touches on the field, showing off her efficiency as the Dragon House's assistant. With a dramatic flourish, the maid presents Ferda the shooting range she herself prepared following his instructions. Ferda softly applauds, impressed that she managed to set up a whole training field in just half a day. Ruri asks him, confused, why he asked for such simple targets instead of high-end magical gear. He says he needs to train his mana control, which seems to Ruri as redundant as practicing how to breathe. Ruri warns that other dragon descendants would laugh at him, calling such methods primitive and unnecessary. Ferda reflects silently on how natural geniuses will never understand the value of accumulated human effort. Ruri asks for permission to observe his practice, driven by a curiosity she can't hide behind her mask of coldness. Ferda walks towards the targets, thinking that stability is the key to mastering mana, the fundamental principle of the blue circle. However, her circle is red, which forces her to release her emotions while maintaining absolute control over them. He bitterly recalls that in his previous life, it took him an entire year to learn how to extract mana from such a violent current, and another year to condense that energy into a perfect sphere, a technique forged with blood and sweat. But now, with his seasoned mind, it only takes him 2 minutes to recreate that same technique with astonishing ease. Ruri is stunned to see a flawless mana orb appear, achieved on the first try and without any wasted energy. Ferda manifests 3 crimson projectiles that hover before him, ready to be fired with surgical precision. He aims steadily at the targets, focusing the destructive power at the tip of his index finger. With a whisper of fire, he unleashes a red energy ace that streaks across the training field like lightning. The impact of Mana's shot obliterates the central target, causing an explosion that leaves Ruri speechless. Ferda looks pleased, confirming that his skills haven't deteriorated despite his fresh start in this world. Ruri keeps a serious expression, unable to take her eyes off the destruction caused by a supposed rookie mage. Later, Ruri presents her detailed report on Ferda's progress to the imposing figure of the Grand Duke Valdrova. Valdrova listens with curiosity, wondering what real impression the human made on someone so familiar with the outside world. The maid explains that Ferda was suspiciously flawless, which makes him a dangerous and secretive subject in her eyes. Ruri insists that no human is that perfect by nature, and is convinced that he's a sick freak hiding something. Valdrova concludes that if Ruri recognizes him so much, Ferda must be an extraordinary man, something the maid reluctantly admits. Valdrova gives a slight smile, determined to give Ferda the benefit of the doubt and believe in his intentions. Ruri, however, can't help but bitterly recall how her mistress was deeply hurt by humans in the past. As she places her hand on her chest, Ruri swears that she won't let that happen again and wants to test the kid's true intentions. A sharp look crosses her face, determined to protect her mistress's heart from any possible deception. Ruri suggests to Valdrova that they take this chance to hand that matter over to Ferda and see how he reacts. Valdrova raises an eyebrow curiously, asking if she really means handing over that responsibility. In the Great Hall, the herald's voice booms, officially announcing the arrival of Ferda Roznova. The lords of the Eastern Front, seated at the round table, mutter skeptically about the Grand Duke's unusual summons. The nobles grumble about having to welcome a fiancé when the threat of the monsters is so imminent and dangerous. Rumors about the third son of the Rosnova family are spreading fast, questioning if anyone really accepted the marriage proposal. The hall buzzes with criticism towards the 18-year-old, whom they call a defective product, incapable of handling a sword. Count Olvera Concilius watches the scene with his hands clasped, maintaining an air of superior calm amidst the chaos. With total cynicism, Count Olvera with Silas assures that Valdrova will probably end up destroying this new fiancé in no time. The grand doors swing open, revealing Ferda Rosnova as he walks with grace towards the lords. Moments before, Ferda was engrossed in his books, questioning the need to meet with the nobles right away. Ruri firmly explains to him that it's a task he must face, since his role in the duchy is about to change drastically. Ferda listens intently as he closes his book, aware that his peace is about to end. Ruri tells her the story of Valdrova. She was the one who put an end to the life of the black dragon Godwin, the embodiment of darkness. For that unprecedented feat, the Empire bestowed upon her the title of Grand Duke and absolute control over these lands. Since Valdrova has to deal with monster suppression, Ferda is the one who has to handle the territory's administration. Ruri clarifies that Valdrova will handle external affairs, while Ferda will have to manage the household and the local lords. Ferda wonders if this makes him the man of the house, as he imagines the contrast between Valdrova's fighting and his paperwork. He suspects that giving him so much power is just another way for Valdrova to keep an eye on him, but he accepts the challenge with his unflappable gaze. Back in the hall, Ferda stands before the nobles and introduces himself proudly as the future husband of the great Duchess Valdrova. Ferda stands before the nobles with absolute calm and asks, "How would you like to address him?" He knows that as soon as they open their mouths, the hierarchy will be set in stone forever. The nobles, confused, don't know whether to treat him like an outcast or the future husband of the Grand Duke. Count Ulbera, with Silas, an elderly lord with a spotless white beard, speaks up with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. He says they are only nobles under the great duke's light. Ulbera insists that, of course, they must show respect to the future husband, but leaves a loaded pause. The old lord reminds him that everyone present has sworn loyalty to the empire since before he was born. Try to put your experience above the young man. He suggests that Ferda, as his future husband, should also show them the proper courtesy. The other nobles nod, feeling backed by the speech. Ferda doesn't flinch and asks if that's her final answer. He wants to know once and for all if she will speak with respect or if he should treat them like inferiors. Her gaze turns icy as she demands a clear answer. The atmosphere in the room turns tense in an instant. The Count Ulbera breaks out in a cold sweat and gives in right away. He admits that it's fair for Ferda to address them as his inferiors. The protagonist accepts the response coldly. Ferda tells them that little will change directly when he gets married. He gives them free rein to keep running their territories as they see fit, whether they govern well or exploit their people. Tesselos Vulture, a hulking guy in a green cloak, blows up when he hears the word exploit. He slams the table, asking if he's accusing them of extortion. Ferda shrugs it off, saying it was just a slip of the tongue. His attitude only pisses him off more. Tesselos tells him that now he understands why his family kicked him out. He can't stand that an apprentice tries to play at being a mago in front of them. He demands respect from his superiors and calls him a first circle initiate in a derogatory way. He throws in his face that he is a much more capable fourth circle mage. Ferda repeats Tesselos's words with contempt. It seems like his opponent's level doesn't impress him at all. He remarks that a mage's rank is determined only by their skill. To him, a fourth circle is just decent. In the background, a red magic circle begins to glow intensely. Tesselos is freaking out. He can't believe some rookie has the nerve to insult him like this, and swears he'll teach him manners the hard way. Ferda raises his hand to stop him and makes him an offer he knows he won't be able to refuse. The political tension is about to turn into a physical conflict. He proposes a duel to test the skills of that simple first circle. Ferda keeps a look of total boredom while challenging him, a duel between a first circle mage and a fourth. The news spreads like wildfire as they prepare for the showdown. The other nobles mutter that the outcome is obvious. Ruri, the silver-haired maid, watches the scene with a neutral gaze, waiting to see what her new lord is capable of. Everyone's wondering if Tesselos will really show mercy to Ferda. The difference in levels seems like an insurmountable chasm to anyone watching. Now in the training yard, both take their positions. The place is awe-inspiring, fit for a duel between high-ranking nobles. Ferda asks with total calm what magic his opponent plans to use. It seems more like a casual chat than a fight to the death. Tesselo laughs, saying it's rude to ask him to reveal his hand in a duel. He's convinced he's got this in the bag, mocks him asking if he's scared, and gives him a chance to back out before it's too late. His arrogance knows no bounds. He announces that he will use Magic Blast, an extremely destructive fourth-level spell. A reddish energy starts to violently surround him. The spectators are horrified. They know that if Ferda takes a direct hit from that magic, it's very likely he won't even survive to tell the tale. Ferda responds that, in that case, he'll also tell him what he'll use, a simple managed. The difference in power between the two spells is ridiculous. Tesselo lets out a mocking laugh. He can't believe Ferda thinks he can take him down with such basic and weak magic. He feels insulted by the lack of seriousness. Ferda just casually remarks that he knows a lot more than he lets on. His confidence starts to make Tesselos nervous, despite his theoretical advantage. The nobleman explodes, screaming insults as he channels all his magic. The magical circle glows with dangerous intensity, ready to strike. Tesselos swears he'll wipe him out of existence without a trace. The amount of mana he's gathering is over the top for a practice duel. Ferda notices the bloodlust and how his opponent is deliberately ramping up the power. He He figures that Tesselos also has a red circle that feeds on intense emotions. With an air of superiority, Ferda preps his mana projectiles and laments his opponent's bad luck. Tesselos' attack is already underway. Tesselos is stunned for a second time, seeing the precision of Ferda's movements. Something in the atmosphere has suddenly changed. Ferda declares that the duel is over, fires his mana orbs with surgical precision that defies all logic. The impact is imminent. Tesselos tries to react, but Ferda's attack speed is way faster than he expected from a first circle. The noble is confused. Ferda's projectiles whiz past him without touching him, making him question his opponent's aim for a brief moment. He realizes his mistake too late. Ferda wasn't aiming for his body, but for the weaknesses in his incomplete magic circle. Tesselos' magical circle takes the direct hits at its structural weak points. The magic starts to violently crumble before it can even fire. The circle explodes into 1,000 shards of light. Tesselos is in shock, unable to grasp how someone could destroy a 4th-level spell with a simple, basic spell. Tesselos can't wrap his head around what just happened. A first circle mage tore apart his technique like it was nothing. He stares at the wreckage, admitting to himself that he wouldn't be able to do something like that. His hand trembles against the ground as all his arrogance fades in an instant. He gasps, completely exhausted, processing the reality check he just received. He hangs his head, defeated. All that's left in his mind is the echo of his failure in front of everyone. Ferda approaches him with a chilling calm and asks him straight up if he's giving up. Tesselos starts to stammer, trying to process the public humiliation. Instead of hatred, defeat ignites in him a desperate desire to become stronger. He formally surrenders and assures him that he will do whatever it takes to gain more power. The other nobles murmur in shock. They can't believe the 4th circle has fallen to a rookie. Ruri appears behind a terrified noble and suggests that, if they don't believe what they see, they might as well gouge out their own eyes. Tesselos tries to save some dignity and praises Ferda's technique, although he admits he barely pulled it off. He mentions his past in the capital, trying to sound important, even as he remains on his knees. Ferda asks for his full name, with a coldness that should have set off alarm bells. Upon hearing the name Tesselos Vulture, Ferda remembers exactly who he is from his past life. His gaze turns icy. He remembers that, in the future, this guy was his supposed benefactor. Without saying another word, Ferda puts his finger right on his forehead. The nobleman doesn't get it. A manager shoots him point blank before Tesselos can even react. Blood splatters violently. The execution is cold, quick, and brutal. The nobles present are frozen, with sheer terror etched on their faces. Tesselos' body hits the ground, lifeless. Ferda looks down at him without a trace of remorse, justifying the act by saying he couldn't let him live, as he would only bring misfortune to his fiancée. The silence in the arena is absolute, broken only by the wind sweeping through the place. A close-up of the corpse confirms that Ferda has executed a high-ranking noble in front of everyone. Panic erupts among the lords. This is a straight-up murder. They're horrified because he killed him after the duel had officially ended. Ferda, his face smeared with blood, wonders who would dare to stand in his way now. He walks calmly towards the exit and asks with total indifference why everyone is so tense. He turns around to tell them not to worry. The guy simply deserved to die. Count Obera stutters in fright, not understanding what this death has to do with the Grand Duke. Ferda flashes an unsettling smile as the blood trickles down his cheek. He claims that Tessal was directly going against the wishes of his fiancée, no matter how loyal he seemed. He mentions that it's something that would happen in the distant future, leaving the lords convinced that he's crazy. He clarifies that he doesn't give a damn what the rest of them think or do. His warning was clear. Ferd is inside, but the journey isn't agreeing with him at all. He looks terrible. He's clutching his head. That single mana shot has completely drained him of magical energy. It was a risky move that drained his reserves completely just to send a message. In his chibi version, he bitterly complains about the dizziness and the lack of modern cars in this world. Ruri scolds her for taking out an important Nord, saying that this will complicate the engagement ceremony. Ferda asks her ironically if she really thinks that guy was a loyal servant. He wonders if Tesselos was really clean, suspecting the dark secrets he was hiding. Ferda explains that Tesselos was a mediocre, but the other lords are worse, stealing even in times of war. He assures that the engagement ceremony will go ahead as planned, since he had more than enough reason to kill Vulture. He looks pretty exhausted. Using high-level magic in such a frail body is taking its toll. If his memory serves him right, the ultimate proof of Tesselos's betrayal is very close to here. They arrive at the imposing castle of the Vulture family just as the sun begins to set. The Vulture's butler, an impeccably dressed old man, comes out to greet the Grand Duke's guests. Ferda lets go of the master of the house is dead, so you don't have to worry about him. Before he can react, Ruri hands the bewildered butler a heavy, mysterious sack. She orders him to hang the contents of the sack in a place where it can be clearly seen from the castle doors. The poor guy is stunned when he realizes he's holding the head of his late master. The castle is shrouded in an eerie twilight as they prepare to search the place. They enter Thazzelhouse Vulture's luxurious bedroom. Determined to find the noble's dirty laundry, Ruri warns him that he better find proof of corruption or the public slaughter will be hard to explain. Bingo! Ferd finds a hidden secret door underneath the Lore's bed. There was something to hide. He feels around on the floor for the opening mechanism, but it doesn't seem to be that easy. Ferda tells his assistant to step aside. He knows Ruri has a quicker way to open doors. Ruri's gaze sharpens and she cocks her fist. She's got no patience for mechanical puzzles. Boom! With one blow, she smashes the wooden and stone floor, revealing the forbidden entrance. With the way clear, Ferda invites the girl to go down. The real investigation begins. The stone stairs descend into a thick darkness charged with oppressive energy. The stench of blood is unbearable. At the bottom, they find a hellish scene of death. It's a secret lab full of human and monster corpses stitched together. Tesselos wasn't your average noble. He was a demon worshipper who'd stop at nothing to gain power. He was a necromancer who used the bodies of his own soldiers for his twisted experiments. Ruri's expression turns fierce at such an abomination. The disgust she feels is obvious. She comments that humans really are beyond saving, selling their humanity for a bit of dark magic. Ruri can't help but ask how Ferda knew about this place so well hidden, but he's distracted by a find, the secret masterpiece of Tesselos. It's the method of cultivating infinite mana, a forbidden knowledge that defies the laws of nature. The document explains that monsters generate mana constantly, unlike humans. The lab was dedicated to trying to replicate that spontaneous generation in human bodies. If they could extract pure mana continuously, a mage could have unlimited power without rest. The original researcher dreamed of breaking the limits of magical circles and becoming invincible. His plan was to use that power to wipe out the nobles who had scorned him and the demon dragon itself. In his past life, a much tougher Ferda was the one who stopped this madness in its tracks. That encounter ended with the witch's death and Ferda walking away with his most precious research. And now, fate has placed that same method in his hands once again in this new life. With this study, he can reach the 8th circle of magic much faster than anyone could imagine. Ruri eyes him warily, noticing that, after all, he too craves the forbidden power. He tells her that no one would know if she decides to steal the document now that the investigator is dead. Ferda weighs his options as he eyes the paper. Power is tempting, but the risks are huge. Finally, he orders Rui to destroy the entire lab. He doesn't want to leave any trace of this. Rui is stunned. She can't believe that Ferda doesn't feel even a hint of temptation with such forbidden knowledge. Ferda admits the research is revolutionary, but wonders what good it does if it only brings misery. He'd rather wipe out this evil right now, before the temptation causes more pain to his future wife, the Grand Duchess. With a cold, determined look, he repeats the order, burn it all to the ground. Ruri takes on the job. For her, destroying something so despicable is a piece of cake. The blue flames start to consume the papers, erasing forever the sins of Tesselos Vulture. Ferda reflects on how magic always mirrors the emotions and essence of the person casting it. Tesselos's magic was infused with the same deep hatred he felt for the Empire, and it ultimately consumed him. The noble also had a red circle, a sign of an inferiority complex, and a grudge that Ferda knows all too well. If he were to accept that dark magic, Ferda fears he'll be consumed again by emotions he can't control. Decides to leave that hatred behind, along with the version of himself that had to hate to survive. He watches the flames with a strange inner peace. Everything is burning just fine. Ruri watches him in silence, thinking he's a totally unpredictable and pretty creepy psychopath. Still, she suggests leaving that stinky place before they get too used to the smell of death. It wouldn't be gentlemanly to smell of blood right before your own engagement ceremony. The time has finally come.